the discussion with Terry. As described in the B case, Terry hasn't been able to find another job within your organization. He has applied to some other companies. A company that Terry applied to, Microcomp, has asked you for a recommendation. They want to know why he left the company and whether he was forced to leave. Write a letter to the company with your recommendation. Oh, well, that's not what we're supposed to do. That's the discussion leader assignment.
Yes, that no one has to do.
I'm just trying to find what we're supposed to talk about. Hold on.
Although the company cannot ask why he left or forced to leave, like you can verify employment. That's kind of what you can do. And I think you can say if he was terminated for cause. There we go.
Okay. All right, so ask one person on your team to explain employment at will and the exceptions. Make sure the group understands the exceptions. Oh, that was in our reading. Where was that?
Yes. Oh, hey, in unrelated news, Jesse, where do you live in Wisconsin?
I live in Kenosha.
Kenosha, okay. I'm going to be driving from Minneapolis to Chicago sometime the week after next. And there's one way you go from Minneapolis to Chicago, and that's through Wisconsin.
Yeah, Chicago is like an hour away from me.
Oh, okay. Then you're on the south side.
Yeah, I'm right by the Illinois border.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
After Chicago, we get to drive to Omaha, then Salt Lake, then back to Vegas.
Wow.
It's going to be fun.
Driving.
Me and a sister and no kids. Yeah, it's going to be fabulous. All right, so we're talking about like...
So employment at will.
Someone has to explore employment at will.
Here, I'll just pull up the other screen that I have open. It's right here. Legal perspective. There were some exceptions. Where was it? Oh, it's right here.
So all the exceptions are on that discussion. Are they?
What's that? Oh, it's right here.
Oh yeah, they are, because like breach of implied contract is a exception.
Oh, that's right. There it is. There it is. I guess are there exceptions to each of these? Okay. Wait, where?
So we're just supposed to talk about, like, explain it.
Yeah, I think the exceptions are just what it has in that. The breach of implied contract, breach of implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing, violation of public policy, and then the discrimination statutes.
Okay.
So I think the violations are just what they had listed in the discussion prep that we were just looking at.
Okay.
So basically,
so
it's just saying that an employer can has the right to fire an employee, like, when they want, for no reason or without notice, and then we go over the exceptions.
Can somebody else leave for just a second? I need to mute my microphone.
Cool. All right, what we're talking about.
So we're going over the exceptions to the employment.
Okay, so at will. So the general functioning principle of at will is that simply that there's no duration. It is not like, when you hire someone that's a contract position for this amount, that's not at will. That's a contract position. But if it's full time or even part time, but there's no duration, it's considered at will.
Yeah.
So breach of implied covenant and good faith and fair dealing. Yeah, basically you got to be able to prove that they did not do what they said they would do.
So the breach of implied contract is that. So that's when if you have a contract for like a set amount of years and the employer fires you before that.
Mm-hmm. That's
what the contract is.
Yeah, but if there's a duration that's therefore not at will, it would not be considered. If you have a contract with a duration, it's not at will, so therefore it can't be an exception to an at-will contract if the fact that it has a date negates it from being an at-will contract.
So it uses the example there, it says the 3-strike policy. So if they've said this is your first offense, and you already know that their way of doing things in the company is that you'll have 3 chances, and if they fire you after 1, that's a breach of the implied contract because you were under the impression, even though it's not explicitly written down somewhere, that you would have the 3 strikes like everybody else. It's what I kind of took from it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just wonder how you would. I wonder if you actually leverage this law to sue an employer for breach of covenant. I'm thinking, how would you prove it? Was it written down? How would you prove that it was expected? And you'd have to go with oral testimony, because if it's not written down and it's not oral testimony, it doesn't exist. So you'd have to get other employees to say, yeah, this is this is how I understand it. So you'd have to get a few of those to say, yes, I understand it in this way. So then you could say, everyone understand it's general accepted industry standard or company standard, and then it wasn't followed. So, okay, I could see how that would work.
Well, I feel like that's the complexity of the employment at will, is that all of these imply, the next one is implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing. I mean, you are the understanding that as an employer, you can terminate them whenever you want because they're at will, but there's all these implied exceptions that they could come back and sue the company for. So I think from the HR standpoint, you have to make sure that there's not the implied policies in your company, that they're either explicit or they're not there.
Right, that's a good point.
So let's see, what's okay, so violation of public policy, terminated, basically, so the laws of the state are considered the minimum requirement, and then company policies supplement that. So if they have, say violation of public policy, does your policy or actions encourage or mandate that an employee break the law? Basically a law that you'd have no sway over. Like if a company policy says murder is legal, that doesn't make murder legal within the company. There is a minimum requirement. So terminate an employee for refusing to be a felon, serve on a jury, publish illegal or unethical practices. That's what considered the blowing the whistle is. Filing for working comp, refusing to date one's boss, which is straight up sexual harassment, which is also illegal. I believe we covered that in week 3. Let's see, anti-discrimination, there's race, ADA, and age discrimination in employment. Age discrimination as employment's a new one. I don't remember that one. It must be, yeah, I think all the baby boomers got upset that no one wanted to hire them anymore because they're all like 50 and 60. And so them being, until recently, the biggest voting bloc in the country, went, and of course they're older people who pick up and read a newspaper, so they actually know how to contact their legislators. They went ahead and got themselves a law, which means you can't, they added age to, not disability, but they made it its own act. Now I'm curious, when did that get passed?
I don't know.
What? 1967? Lol, no. Of course it was signed in by Lyndon B. Johnson. That guy was creepy. Oh. Okay, case law. Appellate arbitration, sometimes for a good cause. Okay. Are we on to step 2?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
What should the manager do? Okay, so we all read up on Terry and Phil's sagas of discovery.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. What impact does Terry and Phil have on the bottom's company line? I think there's direct and indirect. Direct is the payroll that they're wasting on him or them. And but the indirect cost is loss of productivity and loss of morale amongst other people. So it's not just a Terry Phil problem, it's the teams they're working on. Who has to carry the flat tire? We've all had group projects in college. I'm sure we all know what we're talking about.
Well, and the manager, she is having to babysit them, and she's not able, it's affecting her job.
Mm-hmm.
So she's wasting time telling them what to do and micromanaging them because they're not able to do that themselves.
Well, and I think as well that it's showing the other members of the company what you can get away with and still be employed. So if someone's like, well, Terry doesn't contribute much, but he's still here,
Yeah.
So I think it's also setting a bad example for the rest of the employees.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, and I like the what's it called? Terry makes no contribution, so all of his salaries and benefits are pure costs. Like there's no value add.
Yeah.
So in a company that's only making $300,000 a year, like that's their profit, 300 grand, and you've got like over 50 people working for you, and you're only like, that's enough profit for what? One guy? Maybe two? So that profit margin is laughably low. So there's a situation at my sister's work that's actually similar, and it's happening right now. They're in what my sister calls Game of Thrones week, which is when we all figure out who's going to get reorganized and who's going to get executed as they're fired or bounced from the board. But there's so her department is compliance, and there's one other person in the department that was hired as a QA quality assurance manager, but she does not have the skills that she touted on her resume. She's very, she's not a value add employee. 2 words, ladies, blue eyeliner. So they're having to go through and change her titles. They basically have to demote her to the level of responsibility that she can actually perform. There's a lot of things that she's supposed to be doing that she is physically not capable of and mentally cannot actually get the job done. And so they have to bump her down to something that she can do, or they have to fire her. This is a startup. they've got just over 50 people now, and the only other person in my sister's department is not able to produce what they need her to. And Lauren is my sister. She's in the most critical department. So they've just hired another person recently, and now they're having the lady they did hire, they're demoting her, and she's reporting to him, and then he's reporting to my sister. But yeah, it's been interesting because I've actually seen it from the HR side and the discussions that my sister as a manager or director has had with the HR people and how they physically work this stuff in real life so that they're covered. It's actually kind of interesting.
Wow.
So yeah, Terry would be a more accurate description of the lady at my sister's work. And I'll tell you what, not firing them or demoting them to what they can actually do, it ripples through the organization. So you're on the same, you say you're on the same team with Terry. So this guy is a flat tire, no value add, complete waste of space and time in this company. And he has the same title as you, who's working 60-hour weeks and actually getting stuff done. So, you know, if he moves on and you move on, you both have the same title. But this guy is worthless and you're actually trying to get it done. So what does that do to morale? What does that do to people who want to stay? I mean, bad employees and bad managers can run off good talent. It happens all the time.
Well, I feel like the whole reason why they have to change their job titles and stuff is because they're afraid of the repercussions that they could get legally. You know, I feel like they're weighing the option of, well, which one's worse, going through a legal battle with this employee that we let go, or keeping them on and just keeping them pacified. And I feel like it's like a similar situation, and I saw it all the time in high school. It was, is it worth it to fail this student because they really don't deserve to pass, or is it more worth it to pass them so I don't have to worry about, you know, the parents and everybody on my back about it? So
yeah, how crazy is that? We're at a point now where if someone does not physically do what is required, it's the teacher's fault. And everyone piles on them. Like, that's a great way to have no teachers, for starters. Google teaching shortage crisis.
right. So and I feel like it's leaking into the workforce, and they can't, you know, we can't terminate employees that aren't performing because of the legal repercussions that they have. So
Europe has a pretty endemic problem with that as well. Like they can't fire people. But here's the thing, eventually that traffic jam stops up, and yeah, we can't fire people, but that also means you cannot hire people. And then they wonder why their unemployment rate's going up.
So you think we should fire Terry, right?
Oh, I think absolutely.
Terry is costing a lot more than they say.
And the fact that he wasn't
Like,
hired, he was never qualified. Like, he got in because he knew somebody in management, and it was like, oh, you know, just a buddy kind of thing. And so I think he knows it too. It's not like it's a secret that I don't think everybody kind of knows how he got in. And so it's common knowledge that he's not up to par.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like not only did he get hired on just because he knew people, but now he's not like at all. So it's kind of like there's really nothing there to keep him. No reason.
Right.
And here's the thing that I think maybe that the text didn't say. So Terry's been looking for a job within the company. He's been looking for a different job within the company. And he can't find one, right? Because everyone goes and asks his team, hey, what does he like to work with? And they say he's a nightmare, so no one will hire him. But this is a guy who got a job because he knew the CEO, he knew several of the C-level leaders or the leaders. So he got the job because he knew people in the company and now is incapable of finding a job in that same company. which means all those guys who are okay, we're okay with him hired, don't want him working for them. Which means it would probably, if push came to shove, it'd be easier to get rid of him than you actually think. Because if no one's going to step up for him so he can get a different job in the company, why would they step up for him so he wouldn't leave the company?
Right.
So yeah, Terry gets to go, like, what do they say? I want him manning a radar station in Alaska by the end of the day. Just mail him his clothes.
So I don't think legally we need to worry about anything. Like, what do you guys think about that?
I hadn't really thought about the legal stuff until Olivia mentioned it, but I don't think there's any exceptions here. It didn't ever talk about a contract, did it?
No, I
This
think
would be like,
they definitely have enough like probable cause behind it. I mean, as far as the evidence that they stated in the document that we read, I mean, it sounds like his performance reviews and everything are in the hole, and that they would have enough leverage behind his, like, how he's performing in the company to be able to terminate him. And I mean, if he did come back, that they should be fine in the court case.
I think.
but they did. Sorry, they did say that. I think that the other manager had been giving him like a good rating, not a good one, but like a enough. So couldn't he use that and be like, well, they said I've been doing okay up until this new manager came.
Yeah, as I see, okay, so here's the peculiar thing I noticed about the assessments, like a 3.0 or a 2.5 or whatever. So clearly they're intending to use this numerical scale to measure an employee against the standard. Because if you're not measuring against the standard, why bother giving it a number? So this guy, so it's like Terry could be dangerous. Top management wants to retain, has been given high scores in the past. So this is where I, as a manager, saying, okay, he's got a terrible reputation. He can't find a job anywhere else in the company, but it's been giving 3.0s and 3.5s up to now. Those two things don't match. So we need to check and see how accurate our metrics are. Is a 3.0, like, what are we measuring?
Well, and it did say that Rachel, or the woman who had been giving him that, was not technical, and she couldn't maybe tell that he was not capable, or maybe she was just in denial. And so it may fall upon her, she may be the one, the weak link there that gave him those reviews when in reality he didn't deserve them.
Yeah. And honestly, I saw on the same thing when he was describing his situation with Phil. And he's like, I'm not going to give you a 2.5, even though you are at a 2.5. I'm giving you a 3.0 because I don't want you on a PIP. He's doing the same thing. He is altering his numerical assessment due to personal preference. At that point, the measurements are not valid.
And did we read somewhere about emotions, checking your emotions somewhere? In one of was it in the layoff case? I don't know. There was an article this week that said we have to check our emotions and realize what they are when we're in these kinds of situations, so they don't become a part of our decision making. Hold on, where was that?
Yeah.
I think it was in the layoff. There was a little thing about that.
There's a similar example at one of the companies my sister worked at. They have what's called CAPAs, and this is manufacturing practices. And when you when something deviates from that practice, you have to basically document it and say, yep, this is what we're wrong and this is how we're fixing it. Admit failure, highlight improvement. That's the industry standard. So one of my sister's bosses, I think she actually reminded me a lot of Rachel in the story. Like, she's nice and everything, but she's not super technical. She does not have the eye necessary to manage procedures. And so, things got a little sloppy. And so her boss gave her an incentive saying, reduce your kappas by this much and you'll get this bonus. So what happened? They just stopped writing down the kappas. They didn't reduce the amount of kappa. They didn't reduce the amount of deviations. They didn't reduce the amount of accidents or failures. They just stopped writing them down so they could meet the mark and get the bonus. So this Rachel thing, so she's literally being paid to destroy data. She is literally intentionally giving people false scores to meet the requirements, but not actually achieve the objective, which is why your requirements need to be your objective. So yeah, my opinion is Terry gets mailed his clothes, and like Phil, he's not a value add, but yeah, him getting sick is like, you can't get around that. It would be such an open and shut case, because even if you do fire him and he does sue you and it does go to trial, really? Guy with liver cancer / failure just trying to stay alive gets canned by his company the minute he's not useful to him? There's no way you're winning that judgment.
Yeah, that's a little bit harder one. The Phil one, Terry's pretty obvious, but Phil, it's like,
Yeah, I don't know why Phil thinks he should get a promotion though. That part doesn't fit. Like, a promotion is increased responsibility. If you're getting over liver cancer, why do you think you're A, entitled to more responsibility, and B, capable of doing it? You almost died.
I think he expects a promotion because it's part of the company policy, isn't it, to give a promotion after 3 years?
Yeah, either you get promoted or you get fired. That was it?
yeah.
I've never heard of that before. And frankly, it's once again measuring the wrong thing.
I think that's a good policy to have. Because
Really?
you can't, I mean, those are two really big options. Fire someone or promote them.
Oh, you think it's not a good idea? Oh wait, I'm not understanding your opinion on this. Do you think it's good to have that policy?
No.
Okay, all right. Well, okay, so there was another class. Oh, it was the organizational communication. And they had there's this system that they set up with managers of how to basically not really rank, but define your employees. Because if you have a team working together, they're not supposed to all be the same kind of person. Now, if you're doing something highly technical like programming, I can see why you'd have a team of programmers. That's fine. But they basically had your superstars, the high performers, and then they had, that was 7, 8, it was a 9 square thing, and 7, 8, and 9 were the superstars, high performers. The 4, 5, and 6, they called them your experienced operators. They weren't people who really had a whole lot of ambition, but they were good at what they did and they were steady. And they just didn't, and then that was fine. And then the 1, 2, and 3 were kind of your lower performers, and you have to figure out what you want to do with them. Because they may not be performing as well as you need them to, and they could be taking up space for someone who could. But yeah, they had this designation system, and so Phil and Terry are both bottom 3. But Terry is more poisonous to the company morale and the organization dynamic than Phil is. So if you can only pick one, pick Terry.
I think that's right. Because Phil came in through an acquisition, and they just didn't let him go then. And I don't think ethically it would be smiled upon to let him go. Is that where we're at? Is the ethical obligations?
What do ethical obligations does the manager have to Terry Phil? Ethics is always weird to me because there's three tiers in my brain. You've got legal, ethical, and moral. And those are different codes. Legal is like the bare minimum, and the moral is, of course, how do you live for yourself? Ethical is the in-between, and ethics is the attempt to define right and wrong without the absence of a superhuman authority. So if you're an atheist, ethics is your highest system of governance. So ethically, what obligations do they have? I think they actually have more obligations to Phil than to Terry. Like, people who are entitled and who, either verbally abuse the people around them or, are not a value add, they've given him enough time. Like, how long have they given Terry to, look for a new job? So I think, maybe if Terry's had enough time, because in the aftermath it talked about how he'd been looking for a different job within the company, but no one would hire him. And at some point, his inability to secure another job is not ethically your problem. And it's not even morally your problem, especially if he is being antagonistic or hostile to the people around him.
Are you talking about Phil?
No, I'm talking about Terry.
Oh, okay.
Because it says what obligations does the manager have to Terry and Phil? What obligations to the company? What obligation to the other employees? This is a guy who basically makes life worse for everyone around him. What obligation do I have to those employees to provide a place they can get their work done?
Yeah, I think it would do everyone good to get rid of Terry. I think with Phil, though, it might make people angry and upset because of the, moral reasons. I mean, because he was sick, because everyone kind of gave up their vacation days to help him, and now they're just going to fire him. I think we could keep him longer, but...
Or if not, in the same position in some other capacity.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe reevaluate him and
maybe there is a promotion somewhere in the company that he could do if it's less physical labor, because as he's getting sicker and sicker, his brain's going to be the only thing left. So what can we use his brain for, even though his body's falling apart? And the difference between Terry and Phil is Terry played to people's vices, and Phil is playing to people's virtues. They've rallied around him, they've sacrificed for him, and I think to fire him after people have sacrificed would send the message that nothing you do to help people matters.
Yeah. I think the biggest negative would be on morale.
Yeah.
The other employees.
Which is, oddly enough, the same reason we need to fire Terry, is because of morale.
So, to show everyone else, you can't just do nothing and work here.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think in Phil's case, in the fact that if we keep him on in the company, it shows the company, it shows the other employees that the company really does care about their employees, and they're not going to throw you out just because you get sick.
Mm-hmm.
So it shows them, no, we'll keep you and, we'll help you out. But in Terry's case, he needs to be thrown out so that they know, look, we're not going to keep flat tires here.
Right.
Yeah. I think Phil, and here's the ironic part, Phil is a value add to the company, not through his contribution, but for his inspiration.
Yeah.
But it is a value add.
All right, we move on to HR.
Yeah.
For the final decision. I think we already got our final decision.
Yeah.
Oh, I smell pizza. Oh. Sorry, I only had a smoothie today, and now I'm smelling pizza downstairs.
Did you guys read the final one? I did.
I did.
I just read it. I just pulled it up.
Where is it? Does it say something here? I don't.
Didn't they decide the same thing that we did? That they They fired Terry, kept Phil.
Yeah.
Well, did they for sure fire Terry? I just read the beginning of Terry's.
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
They did fire him. Oh, thank heavens.
Well, and from it, they said that it ended up being better for Terry because he got a job in his field, and that was more like he had more job satisfaction.
Yeah.
With his new job, and so it was like, even though it was a hard decision, it was better for him in the long term.
Yeah.
I like that she kind of like talked to him, like was real with him, because she wasn't about, playing games or making him feel bad. It was just kind of like, you're not meant for this role.
Yeah, and the way she said it was really nice. She gave him some options.
Yeah.
And she's like, she put the ball in his court and said, these are people that we're hiring. How do you think you compare against these people? And then he was honest and said, couldn't do what they could do. And then she says, do you constantly want to be on the edge? And is that good for your career? And so she turned it around to, you're not a complete failure, but this job isn't really helping you get where you could be.
Yeah, she kind of took on that like coach role and kind of a mentor, which I would really appreciate. Like, come forward with me and say, you should want more for yourself and do something different. It's going to be better for you in the long run. So it's not just looking out for the company, but also for like him as a person.
Right.
Yeah, I think I like how she's, because even though like no one can stand Terry, she's still, hey, I don't believe in these pips because they're designed to run you out of town. So I'm not going to do that. So that's letting him know like this, like the company policy is this completely inhumane and undignified way. And I personally choose a better way. So here's what I'm going to do. And I'm offering this to you. So it's like, yep, I suck, but like they're still not giving up on me because they're still giving me guidance. Like, remember what the Lord says, whom I loveth, I chasteneth? That's true with children as well. Like, guys, if I really didn't care about you, I wouldn't care if your room's clean. I wouldn't care if your homework is done. I would be off partying in my own life because that would be awesome. But no, here I am sitting with you at 9 o'clock at night, trying to help you with your homework. I'm not here to be a slave driver. I could just go. I'm doing this because I love you. I care about you. I'm invested in you. This is something that you need to do. So there's two different, there's different ways to see that action. If if you want to be bitter and entitled, it's like, oh, they don't know what I'm worth. They're trying to get me out of the company. Or someone pays you the compliment of honesty. Because there's a lot of bull crap in this society.
Cool. Well, is that pretty much everything we're supposed to cover today?
I think so. Dude, I read the end, how it happened with Phil. Like, the guy wound up dying like a year and a half later. I'm like, but at least then the company's like, the employees are like, you want to know what? We made his last year bearable.
Yeah.
Right. And he got put in a different position. And so they moved him to another team, which I thought that was a wise move. So he could still work, but he wasn't under so much pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that worked out well.
Yeah.
I mean, not that he died, but
yeah, not that so much.
Yeah, not that.
Okay.
All right. Well,
we don't have another doohickey due for 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
What?
That's right.
I think we just have one left.
Is that's basically our final in this class, correct?
There is a final. There is a final exam.
Oh, there is?
Yeah, okay, so exam final. There's a final exam pre-quiz, so we have to hand in the doohickeys paper and a final exam
Oh,
in
I'm
week
saying-
14.
Okay.
So, hey, if we want to stop the recording, we can kind of look over what